Strachey here. I'm back, the triumphant return, and yes, I am doing this from my brand new Nashville pad. Yeah, my Nashville bachelor pad. Here it is. Drinking a little bullet bourbon. There, just like magic. The glass just appears. A little bit of movie magic, which is appropriate because we are discussing a movie, and a soundtrack, and an album that I feel is connected to this movie for some obvious reasons and a few less obvious reasons. Eric Clapton's August, yes, we'll be discussing that along with the Color of Money movie and soundtrack. Think of it as a three-way review. I'm very excited to talk about this movie because this movie means a lot to me. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and I've never discussed Martin Scorsese before. Obviously, as an Italian-American, and even more obviously as an Italian-American screenwriter, Martin Scorsese is a big deal for me. I love a majority of his movies. Objectively, I would say Goodfellas is his best film. Like, if I could step back and just be very analytical about it, to me that's a perfect movie and that's his best movie. Objectively, I would put it even above Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. Although I do see those three films objectively as his three top tier movies. However, they are not my three favorite Martin Scorsese movies. Now we're getting into subjectivity here. Yes, for me personally, my top three are Mean Streets, After Hours, and this film. Yes, The Color of Money is my third favorite Scorsese film after Mean Streets and After Hours. Not that those other movies I mentioned aren't great. They are, and I love them. I also love Casino too. That's a great movie. But it's the smaller stories. I think the more intimate stories. I think that's why Mean Streets connects with me the most. It's those two characters and that story. And it brings up a lot of feelings about my family and their upbringing, which is very similar to Mean Streets. And After Hours, I love dark humor. I love the dark humor of it. And I was a young single man living in New York City, living in Manhattan, and I could connect a lot with Griffin Dunn's character in that movie. And this movie, The Color of Money, which I'll be getting into, I connect on a lot of personal levels, especially now that I am middle-aged. Yes, I am middle-aged, and that's going to be like the theme. The theme of this three-tier review is going to be how being middle-aged is awesome. Yeah, just like the thumbnail advertised. I will be discussing that, and I will be discussing how The Color of Money plus Eric Clapton's August help prove this theory that being middle-aged is awesome. So now, yeah, we're discussing The Color of Money. There you go. There's the very bare bones, no extra features, Blu-ray. Come on, Criterion Collection. Get on it. Get on it. I want to see like a double or triple disc Color of Money version that also includes like Eric Clapton's like 86 concert tour as well. I want them included. Do it. Come on, make it happen. Come on. Hook us middle-aged men up, all right? More on Clapton later. Right now, we're starting with The Color of Money. If you don't know the basics, this is a sequel. Yes, it's a sequel, although I do feel it works as a standalone film, and I think that's how Scorsese attended it. Him and screenwriter Richard Price crafted a story that I think could work as a sequel or work as a standalone film. It works either way. And it came out in the fall of 1986, but it is a sequel to the 1961 classic starring Paul Newman, The Hustler, in which Paul Newman played Fast Eddie Felson, the pool shark. Great movie. However, I do not stand with the general critical consensus that although they do like this movie, critics do tend to like The Color of Money and praise the directing and the acting and what have you. However, there's always a caveat with it. Usually with mainstream critics, it's always that, it's no Hustler. It's not The Hustler, but it's good. It's good for what it is. Like they're talking about it like it's Jaws 2 or something. A film that's just a passable sequel. Good enough for what it is. For example, I'm going to read this. I got a couple notes. Of course. The Rotten Tomatoes website consensus. All right, I take issues with lots of consensuses. This is like their AI-generated consensus that they got from all the mainstream reviewers, all right? And this is according to the Rotten Tomatoes consensus. The Color of Money, the very film I am talking about now, that it's inferior to the original goes without saying. But Paul Newman and Tom Cruise are a joy to watch, and Martin Scorsese's direction is typically superb. Listen, we can all have different opinions. I don't mind that the Rotten Tomatoes consensus has a different opinion of mine, but I don't like how they just take it for granted. That's the thing that annoys me, that it's inferior to the original goes without saying. Obviously, it does not go without saying, I'm saying the contrary. Yeah, I think The Color of Money is superior to The Hustler. I always felt that way. Back when I watched both films as a teenager, I loved The Hustler, but I loved The Color of Money even more. And I thought it was a superior movie from a writing standpoint, from an acting standpoint, from a score standpoint, from a directing standpoint, from an everything standpoint. I think it's a richer, deeper, and more entertaining film overall. Again, The Hustler's great. Paul Newman was great in it. The whole cast was great. Jackie Gleason, Piper Laurie, all great. But it did have this element that a lot of films from the 50s and early 60s sometimes did. It's a little melodramatic in spots, especially in like the third act. It gets a little heavy-handed and melodramatic. Whereas that does not happen with The Color of Money. No way was it going to happen with Martin Scorsese steering this ship. He's not a sentimental guy. He's not a melodramatic guy. And also Richard Price is not a melodramatic or sentimental writer. This feels like a movie written by and created by people that know what it's like to be in a smoky pool hall. This is grittier, and hey, I like the color. I know Scorsese entertained the idea of doing it in black and white. I'm glad he did it in color. Let me tell you something. You doing a pool movie, a movie about pool, the game of pool, and you're not seeing all those green tables? To me, that's like seeing a movie about the ocean and you don't see a blue ocean, all right? You got to see the green pool tables. So even just the fact that this film's in color, I think makes it a superior movie to The Hustler. Again, no disrespect to The Hustler. In fact, we wouldn't have The Color of Money without The Hustler. So for that reason alone, I'm grateful for The Hustler's existence. Another thing, people might think this is based on the book because they say it's based on the book, and I guess they had to. It was a great title, so they wanted the title. However, the screenplay that Richard Price, a great New York writer, and he was originally a novelist, wrote The Wanderers and Clockers. He would later adapt his own book, Clockers, for Spike Lee, the Spike Lee film from the 90s. And he would also go on to write other screenplays, like for Mad Dog and Glory, Sea of Love with Al Pacino, Ellen Barkin, always liked that film. But this is his crowning achievement because this screenplay is essentially an original story. It's an original story. It is not the story of Color of Money. All you have to do is go to Wikipedia and read the synopsis of the book. Short of just the basic concept that it was a sequel to The Hustler and we were returning back to Fast Eddie Felson now that he's older, like 20-something years later, and he's no longer playing pool anymore, and there is a tournament and he's got to get back into the game again. That's there. The basic concept's there. But that's it. People would be surprised to know that the co-lead of the movie Color of Money, Tom Cruise's character, Vincent Laurea is not even a character in the novel. Yeah, I mean, it's a totally different story. It's about an older guy mentoring a middle-aged guy, and it's just a totally different story with totally different characters. Martin Scorsese, who got drafted in by Paul Newman to do a sequel to The Hustler, they gave him an earlier draft of the script that was closer to the novel, but Scorsese's like, nah, he didn't really think that worked as a movie, and he was correct, and that is why Martin Scorsese is one of the greatest filmmakers of the 20th century. He reads a script and he knows what's a movie and what's not a movie. So he enlists Richard Price, and Richard Price pretty much just writes an original screenplay with just the very, very basic concept of the Color of Money book and creates all these characters, all these rich, awesome, great nuanced characters. Vincent Laurea, his girlfriend Carmen, that is played by Mary Elizabeth Macaroni. That's all from Richard Price. That's all his imagination. All this great dialogue. The most famous line in the film. One of the greatest lines of all time in cinematic history. Money won is twice as sweet as money earned. Comes from Richard Price. It's not even in the book. It's his dialogue, all right? His dialogue. Just think about that line. Money won is twice as sweet as money earned. That's one of the greatest lines ever written for a movie. The whole movie has crackerjack dialogue, and Paul Newman just chews it up when he spits it out. There was this one line when he's disappointed in the earnings that Vincent made from his hustling, that they didn't get enough because Vincent blew the deal by revealing he was a great pool player when he's not supposed to do that. But that Vincent, he's never listening. He's never listening to Eddie. But anyway, so when afterwards they're in the car and Eddie is complaining about that they just have $150 from what Vincent won. And Eddie goes, $150, if you go into a shoe store, you come out with one shoe. Love that line. Love Richard Price's dialogue. The whole thing is wallpapered with great lines. It's a great story, great character-driven story. You know, a novel's a novel. What works for a novel can work for a novel, but a movie's a movie. And this is a movie, and it works. It's an amazing screenplay. The directing's great. Scorsese's in top form. There's a real sleight of hand to it. Just from the opening, captivates you with that wonderful, wonderful Robbie Robertson score and that main theme, the main titles theme that you hear in the beginning and end of the film. So rich and soulful and as smoky sounding as the images on the screen. It opens Martin Scorsese himself doing a monologue about nine ball, which is the game of pool that is played throughout this film. And it's probably, as it's discussed in the movie itself, it's like the most popular game, especially for tournaments and television and stuff, because nine ball has a quick turnaround because it's all about just getting the nine ball in. So whoever gets the nine ball in first, then that's it. They win. The game could be won very early. It could be won on the break. Like if you get the nine ball in, that's it. Flip it over. Let's do another game. And yeah, that's going to work great for a televised tournament because there's a lot of breaking. People like the breaking in pool. You know, it's cool. You see all the balls fly around. It's noisy. It's like fireworks on the pool table. Plus there's a lot of drama too, because as Martin Scorsese brings attention to in the wonderful opening monologue, is that nine ball has an element of luck that transcends skill, because no matter how good you are, it's sometimes just how the balls roll, you know? You could be playing a perfect game and actually be playing better than your opponent throughout the game. But if your opponent, just by dumb luck, gets the nine ball in and you don't, well, then he wins the game. That adds this like curveball element that makes it very dramatic and exciting to watch. And it's one of the reasons why this game is exciting to watch for a movie, for similar reasons why boxing movies are usually very exciting. I definitely think sport movies, boxing and pool, work better than a movie, say, about, like, let's say football, where it's more of a team thing, because pool, like boxing, it's like two people. And as a result, it's more character driven, it's more existential, it's more intimate. And this is easily, in my opinion, the greatest pool movie ever made. Yeah, that's right. Sorry, Hustler. Take a step back there. The Color of Money is the greatest pool movie ever made. But yeah, that opening monologue, I love it. And, you know, then music comes in and you see the smoke and then that pan up to the glass of whiskey, one of the great pan ups of all time. And then you're introduced or reintroduced to Fast Eddie Felsen as he's talking up this very attractive barkeep there, who we discover he has an on-again, off-again relationship with. We see that he is now no longer the young pool shark he was in The Hustler, but now a very comfortable in himself, confident, cool, middle-aged man who's a liquor salesman. And he's a liquor salesman the way he used to be a pool shark. He's great at it. It's a lyrical quality to his pitch. He does this great pitch for the whiskey they're drinking, and it's sensual and it's like seductive. And goddamn, this is like only 2 minutes into the movie. This is why Martin Scorsese is one of the greatest directors ever. But also Richard Price, the editors, the cinematography, the music, the cast, everything about this movie's working. And I love that scene, this opening scene, when Eddie spots Vincent for the first time playing and hustling a young John Turturro, who's playing this character, skeevy wannabe pool shark, and Vincent's like totally owning him. And this is like Tom Cruise, already such a young actor. But as I said in my Risky Business video, even as a young man, Tom Cruise was like an instant movie star. Like he had the charisma, he had the goods, he pulls you in. In fact, my favorite movies from Tom Cruise are all the ones he did in the 80s. I just love manic, hustling, trying to be the biggest movie star he could be, Tom Cruise. Think about this. Tom Cruise in his 20s is going head to head with a Paul Newman in his middle-aged prime, and he's matching him, just like the movie itself. This works on a lot of levels. In fact, I think this character that Tom Cruise plays must be much closer to what he was really like than, say, his character in Risky Business. This was the young, hustling, ambitious man from the wrong side of the tracks that's stepping up to the big leagues, you know? And that's exactly what Tom Cruise was doing in real life. And that's what he's doing in this movie. And that's why it's such an impassioned performance. And likewise, Paul Newman, he is reflecting what his character is. He is a seasoned, awesome gentleman who's been doing this for years and has all this wisdom to impart and just has this sleight of hand, like Martin Scorsese himself as a director at this point by the mid-80s, a real sleight of hand. And Paul Newman's performance, my favorite performance from Paul Newman, by the way, and I love a lot of his past performances, you know, big Cool Hand Luke fan, Cat in a Hot Tin Roof, I love all that stuff. But to me, this is the greatest Paul Newman performance. This is Paul Newman he never was just cool, you know? He was always cool, but he was never this cool. This is the coolest he ever was. You look at at this guy and you go like, yeah, any woman, doesn't matter. She could be 20 or 50. Any woman would fall in love with this guy because he's just so charming and has such this steady, cool way about him. Even though he's a bit of a hothead and has emotional moments, but for the most part, he is just so cool and measured. It's probably one of the greatest illustrations of why middle-aged men are generally cooler than younger men, all right? Because even though, Vincent has his moments, and he's cool, and he's fun, and he's got energy, he's got the youthful energy, but there's a try-hard quality to it, which is appropriate for the character. I'm not saying the performance is try-hard. The character itself is try-hard. But with Newman's character, he's not trying. See, he's just who he is. And it's that centeredness. Because we're at a point in our life when we're middle-aged where we've been through all the bullshit. We know the score by this point. And it's kind of a perfect age because you're not so old that your faculties are gone yet and you still can physically kind of do certain things that you need to do physically. And if you're a creative person or any kind of trade, you're like kind of reaching your pinnacle where you're like in the zone. You have the energy still to compete with younger people, but you know more than they do. You have more wisdom, you have more skill, and you have more of a sleight of hand. And as an actor and as a character, Paul Newman / Eddie Felson is conveying this in the movie. And you just want to hang out with these characters in this world. And Mary Elizabeth Macaroni did an amazing acting job. I think her best acting job too. She really conveys this sexy but tough girl from the other side of the tracks. And it's a great working class movie about people hustling and not being heavy-handed about it, not being melodramatic about it, but just being real about it. Just like this is the world. You got to hustle. You have to hustle. In a lot of ways, this is more the hustler than the hustler. Because this is really about hustling, even more than that film was. And so essentially they go from Chicago to Atlantic City, and Eddie is teaching Vincent how to be a hustler, how to lose on purpose sometimes so that they can make more money hustling these people in the pool halls. There's also another really great sequence with Forrest Whitaker, who's another one of my favorite actors, where Forrest Whitaker plays this eccentric and offbeat hustler that actually gets one over on Fast Eddie. All this twitchy, eccentric brilliance in this scene. I just love watching it and watching him getting under Eddie Felson's skin. The tournament's great. And it just, on a personal note, I can tell you it's true. Money won is sweeter than money earned. See, because when you're a screenwriter, you're always hustling. Any kind of job where you're, whether it's creative or not, any job where you have to prove to people again and again, it's not unlike pool hustling because you have to constantly reinvent yourself. And if you hang in there long enough, you start getting really good at what you do. And that is where you get your satisfaction from. There's value in it. One of the most poignant things about this movie is at the end, the whole idea comes down to, as great as money is, there's the deeper satisfaction that Eddie Felson gets from becoming the best again or close to the best again. That's the thing. We don't even know. The movie ends on a question that he might not be the best yet. He might not be as good as Vincent, but he doesn't care. He's going to keep on doing it until he is as good, if not better than Vincent. That moment at the end when he just says, "Hey, I'm back," and he leans in there. Eddie leans in there with that look of excitement of knowing like he's in the zone again. It charges me up. It charges me up and it inspires me. And it still inspires me. The soundtrack's also great. Robbie Robertson of the band fame. Yes, that Robbie Robertson. And no surprise because Martin Scorsese did that movie, the concert movie, The Last Waltz. So he already had a connection with Robbie Robertson. And Martin Scorsese, not only a great filmmaker, but a man of great taste. A man of great musical taste. A known Rolling Stones fan. He's used so many Rolling Stones songs in his movies. But in general, you'll hear blues, you'll hear soul, you'll hear doo-wop, you'll hear classic rock. He's just a great lover of music. It comes through in his movies and from his song choices. And this is a movie where the soundtrack is very important. I love the soundtrack. There are some instrumental pieces. Robbie Robertson wrote most of the instrumental pieces, brought in certain people like Mark Knopfler, Eric Clapton, Robert Palmer, a lot of British guys that were soulful and hip to the blues. So he brought them in. So the soundtrack itself opens with, it's not done in the order of the songs from the movies, how they're used in the movies. They try to make it kind of flow like an album, which I can appreciate. I like that they did that. It opens with a Don Henley song, Who Owns This Place? Not bad, not bad. I can roll some Don Henley. Not as good as his stuff in the Eagles, but, not bad. As a solo Don Henley song goes, this one's kind of rocking, it's catchy, it's good. It's in the way that you use it, which I will talk more about as we segue from this soundtrack to the Eric Clapton album, August. I have a lot to say about this song. This song itself is, well, let's just say it's a microcosm of what I feel for The Color of Money. I feel about this song. It's an anthem. It's an Edwin anthem. Let yourself in for it. Great song. Great slow, sneaky, boozy bar song with Robert Palmer singing. Great vocals. Love his vocals on it. The only thing I say about this song is the Casio horns are a little unfortunate. They should definitely used real horns on this song. Don't Tell Me Nothing by the one and only Willie Dixon. Wow, god damn it. They got Willie Dixon on this shit. Willie Dixon's like one of the most important blues songwriters of all time. He's also a great bassist, but what really cemented his legacy was composing some of the most important electric blues songs of all time. We wouldn't have the Rolling Stones or Cream or Led Zeppelin or AC/DC if it wasn't for Willie Dixon. All right, so that's awesome that he's here, and it's like a funky kind of contemporary at the time R&B song, and I dig it. Two Brothers and a Stranger, which is a cool little instrumental with Mark Knopfler, who I'm also a big fan of. I'm a big Dire Straits fan. One day I'll make a video about them, and love his guitar work. Amazing. Standing on the Edge of Love, B.B. King, funky, kind of straddles that line between slick soul and blues, modern blues. Another instrumental piece by Robbie Robertson. It's great. Werewolves of London. Yes, that song. You know that song by Warren Zevon. Always loved this song. One of the first songs I ever remember hearing as a child in the early 80s. I always loved it. It's great. So yeah, hey, why wouldn't you like that on a soundtrack? My Baby's in Love with Another Guy. Probably my least favorite song on it. It's another Robert Palmer track. It's a little... it's all right. It's all right filler, I guess. And then you got the main title theme by Robbie Robertson. I love this piece of music. It's one of my favorite pieces of music ever used in a movie. It's both jazzy and bluesy and so soulful. I love this piece of music. I write to it a lot. I drink bourbon to it a lot. I might even make love to it sometimes. Interestingly, a song that is used very prominently in the movie in a very significant sequence is Phil Collins' One More Night, a song I always liked a lot, a very subtle soul song from his No Jacket Required album. And it's played, it's almost kind of like a love scene. It's like the first time Eddie spots Vincent and like he falls in love with this young pool shark's prowess and his flake and his personality and everything that draws him in. And this Phil Collins song is playing in the background. It's like a very nice, understated, not what you would expect soundtrack cue. It sounds just like a song that would happen to be playing at a bar at that time in 1986, but yet it's perfect and it creates a mood. And it is unfortunate it's not on the soundtrack. Obviously, there must have been some copyright things or the label, like Collins' label, didn't want it to be on the soundtrack. I don't know why it's not on it. It's interesting because Phil Collins, as we'll discover, plays a very big role in this corresponding Eric Clapton album I'm about to talk about. But it's not a big deal. It's like I can listen to No Jacket Required when I feel like it. This is where I should talk about Eric Clapton. All right. Eric Clapton, I've never talked about in any of my videos. I might have once or twice said certain guitarists are better than him. Like I said, Jeff Beck's better than Eric Clapton. And I believe that. I do believe Jeff Beck was better than Eric Clapton. But I do think Eric Clapton's an amazing guitarist, so don't get me wrong. I think it might have sounded like I didn't like Eric Clapton in the past. But no, I'm a fan. When I was younger, when I was a teenager and first getting into like classic rock and older rock from the 60s, I loved Cream. I was always a big Cream fan, and I liked Blind Faith, and I liked Derek and the Dominoes, but that was my cutoff. Back in the 90s, when I was a teenager, I did not like Eric Clapton solo. I didn't like his solo work. I thought it was kind of corny and too much like quote-unquote dad rock for my taste. Keep in mind, in the 90s, it was that whole unplugged era, so he's just like sitting there playing mellow acoustic music with glasses and a sports jacket. I was too much of a punk kid to appreciate this elder statesman. Let's just say that. So I was somewhat cynical, and I heard that acoustic Layla all the time when I was out, so like it annoyed me. I always liked the electric fully produced version, but that acoustic unplugged one became like one of the songs that I hated hearing all the time in the 90s. For the most part, whenever I sampled or heard a little bit of his solo stuff, I couldn't get into it. Short of Slow Hand, which is pretty consistent top down with great songs, I do think his 70s albums do have their share of filler. Nothing bad. There's nothing bad. I enjoy them all. I listen to them now. I've grown to like pretty much all solo Eric Clapton Clapton. I like his work. I like his vibe. I like the mixture of soul and blues. I just dig it. It's perfect middle-aged man music. It just creates that vibe. Maybe because pretty fairly early on, he was already sliding into the middle-age thing just because he lived so fast and so hard and winning the heart of George Harrison's wife and all this intense shit that he went through. So by the time he was like in the mid-70s, Eric Clapton already was a man that had been around the block several times over. And he brings this weight. He brings his weight even into his 70s stuff where he brings the weight of someone that has lived a very full and dramatic life. And he puts in his guitar solos and just the general mood. But I will say the one area where I think Eric Clapton's very underrated is actually his singing. I've grown to really love Eric Clapton's voice. And yeah, he's an amazing guitar player. That's a given. But I don't hear enough people talk about his singing. It's very soulful. It's very rich. It has that quality. Like you hear that this is a man that's like really lived on the edge and is savoring it. He's savoring the aftermath of it. It's like the majority of Eric Clapton's career is savoring the aftermath of the craziness of the 60s and early 70s. And you could tell he learned a lot from all those great blues and soul singers that he loves so much. And really, if you shut your eyes, like Eric Clapton probably is the white rock singer or blues singer that I think most captures the way a black soul singer or blues singer sings. It's a great voice. He has a great voice. With the exception of Slow Hand, which objectively is his best album, I think, and definitely my second favorite Eric Clapton album. For the most part, I prefer his 80s work. I think his 80s work, he really nestled into the elder statesman soul man thing. And he really found himself, I think, on the album Money and Cigarettes, which is another album I love. That's easily my third favorite Eric Clapton album and my second from the 80s. Great album cover. I love that album cover. He really got his style down. He's like a real sharp looking guy, taking a cue from, soul men and R&B singers. He looks really good. The songs become tighter, more focused, more songy. It's not all just about his guitar playing, and it's a real focus, and that's a very consistent album. And I really feel like that's where he really kind of came into himself as a solo artist, and he would continue this way while experimenting with some more pop stuff with the Behind the Sun album, and I like that album too. His albums are essentially R&B albums. If you think of them that way, I think you'd enjoy them more. Like, instead of trying to compare August, the album we're discussing, instead of comparing it to a Cream album or like even Derek and the Dominoes, compare it to like Lionel Richie, compare it to Prince, compare it to Stevie Wonder. It's an R&B album, essentially, what they would call hard R&B. Essentially a slick blues rock / soul R&B album. This album, August, released in 1986, is my favorite Eric Clapton album. Yes, actually, I like August better than even any Cream album or Derek and the Dominoes' Layla. Although Layla kind of gives it a run for the money. I know people are going to think I'm crazy. People are going to think I'm crazy for this, but it's just how I feel. I'm not saying objectively it's the best, although objectively it's a great album. It's wonderfully written, wonderfully performed. All the songs are memorable and great. So it's objectively a great album. But personally, for a lot of the same reasons why The Color of Money connects with me, this album totally connects with me. It's really like the perfect, charming, middle-aged bachelor that's like got his fucking groove on. It's got his swagger going on, and he's making it work. And this is the album that led to Eric Clapton's big comeback. He had a very big comeback off of this album. And the song, and now let's talk about the song. It's In the Way That You Use It. This was a big song. I remember hearing it all the time in the 80s and early 90s. Definitely a great bar song. Great song. It essentially kind of is a theme for The Color of Money. I think a lot of people think of it as the Color of Money song, and the video back in the day had clips from the movie and stuff. And Eric Clapton co-wrote the song with Robbie Robertson. So this song was written specifically for The Color of Money. That's why its lyrics are all about luck and, being kind of down. But then if you use luck, it connects to the opening monologue Martin Scorsese says in the movie about how for some players, luck itself is an art. This goes back to something I was saying. You get better at what you do as the years go by, because not just because you get better at your craft and what you actually do, but because you learn how to use luck more. Robert Evans, the great producer Robert Evans and great Hollywood character, once said that luck is what happens when preparation and opportunity collides. And that's the thing. So many people think, oh, you just got lucky if good things happen to you. Well, maybe once in a blue moon that can happen. But more often than not, luck is about pouncing on something at the right moment, and you've been preparing for it all your life. That's a different thing. That's a horse of a different color of money. That's a big theme of the movie, and that's also a theme, I think, to this song. Luck doesn't matter if you don't use it right. It might be a fleeting moment. Maybe you got that 9-ball one time in the pocket, but if you don't know how to exploit it and build something from it, it doesn't matter. It's all in the way that you use it. And that's why that song has become an anthem for me in my life. Because that's one thing, I'm always trying to exploit luck and get ahead. And this song just charges me up. I hear it and it's great. It's soulful. Clapton sings it beautifully, features some of his greatest guitar solos, and it's a great song. It's a classic. And it's the lead track from August from this album. And even though the rest of the album was co-produced by Phil Collins, who also plays on it, more on that in a bit, this one actually was co-produced by Eric Clapton and Tom Dowd. Tom Dowd, an amazing producer and very innovative producer. And this features different musicians than the core group of musicians that are on August. But still, it flows with it. It's perfect. It's a great way to open the album. Just look at that album cover, too. I love it. I can't believe Eric Clapton did not guest star on an episode of Miami Vice in the mid-'80s. That feels like a real missed opportunity. Like, not as himself, but like playing a character. Like, he could have been like a club owner that owned a club that did like blues acts and stuff, but secretly he's running guns and drugs, and Crockett and Tubbs have to bust his fucking ass. Look, he's a sharp-looking guy, very cool, and has that quality, just like Paul Newman. Look at that thumbnail. You see these two guys neck and neck? Clapton has that same swagger as Newman / Fast Eddie Felson. He's been around the block now, and now he's stepping up. He's stepping up to play with the big boys. He's going to enter the charts. He's going to do that. It's all in the way that you use it. And this song, in America, this was the lead-off single, and it came out when the movie came out. Color of Money came out in October. This album, August, came out in November. Yeah, it's called August, but it came out in November. Maybe it evoked the summer to him, which is why it's called August. But, August is towards the end of the summer. I do think it's supposed to be like, I'm not quite autumn yet, but I'm getting there. He was in his 40s when he did this, but, he was entering his autumn years. But anyway, it came out in November, so it just came out a month after the movie. In the UK, Behind the Mask was actually the lead-off single. But anyway, I love this album. And yeah, it's my favorite Eric Clapton album. I can't entirely divorce it from The Color of Money, because even though this itself is not a soundtrack album, I do think it runs on a parallel track. And I think intentionally speaking, I think there's a reason why it's in the way that you use it. It's the lead song here, and that it was corresponding. Release, it came out like a month after the movie did. So I just feel that there is definitely a vibe. Eric Clapton, who was working with Robbie Robertson on The Color of Money soundtrack, obviously this was all in his head when he was working this out, and I think he was intentionally putting together a new band that was going to create this kind of music, this hard R&B. And this core band with Greg Fillinganes on the keyboards, and it was Nathan East on bass, great bassist, and Phil Collins on drums, and he was a co-producer. Another track that I can't believe was not released as a single. It's my second favorite song on the album after It's in the Way That You Use It. Run. Amazing song, written by Lamont Dozier. Lamont Dozier was part of the classic Motown writing team of Holland, Dozio, and Holland. It was two brothers, the Holland brothers. And they wrote Martha Vandella's Nowhere to Run, one of my personal favorite Motown songs. I guess this Lamont Dozier guy liked the word run. He also wrote another great song, Hung Up on Your Love, on this album. But Run totally has this Motown vibe to it. You could kind of picture the Temptations doing this back in the day, but with this slick 80s thing. This would have been great on that Miami Vice episode, guest starring Eric Clapton as the drug-dealing, gun-running club owner. The main focus is Eric Clapton's vocals. These soulful, rich R&B vocals. Like, he's just a great R&B singer. Tearing Us Apart, this is a song, it's got dated sounding, a little goofy 80s, but it's still good. It's fun. Tina Turner sings with it. I like it. Bad Influence, good song. Walk Away, beautiful song. Very soulful, moving R&B ballad. Love Walk Away. Great vocals from Clapton. Hung Up on Your Love, really funky, cool song. Really dig this. I think this could have been a single too. I think Run and Hung Up on Your Love both could have been singles. I don't know why they weren't. Take a Chance, good tune. Hold On, Miss You, love Miss You. Miss You's probably the song that's the closest to just being a straight up blues song. Kind of after hours, after you're knocking back a lot of whiskey. Holy Mother, another moving soul song, ballad. Great vocals again from Clapton. Behind the Mask, the song that was actually the lead-off single in the UK. This song has a very complicated history. It was originally written by a Japanese electronic group called Yellow Magic Orchestra in the late 70s. Quincy Jones apparently heard it, liked it, played it for Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson recorded a demo of it during the Thriller sessions. Obviously, Michael Jackson sings it great, but it is a demo. He didn't finish it. Decades later, after he died, they did like a modern remix of it and made it like a new Michael Jackson song. I did not really care for that approach. I would have preferred if they made it sound more like a Thriller track. Like they should have made it sound like something Quincy Jones would have produced back in the day. That would have been cooler, but they were trying to make it like for a modern audience. So Greg Phillinganes was a session keyboard player, and he played on Thriller. Plays on several tracks on Thriller, and he was one of Michael Jackson's main keyboardists. Well, he also had a solo album in 1984 called Pulse, and he did the first American official release of the song, which did include expanded lyrics from Michael Jackson, because that original Japanese song didn't have a lot of lyrics, just during this one robot chorus. It's all right. Him and Michael Jackson kept this robot thing during the chorus, which is a little goofy and dated, and it's partially because of that the Eric Clapton version is my favorite version of this song. It's great. I love Eric Clapton's Behind the Mask. Yeah, you could argue that Michael Jackson's vocals were stronger on that demo because he's Michael Jackson, but it still sounds like a demo. Whereas this is a fully completed song. Clapton sounds great. He sounds understated, brings a different quality to the song. And musically, this is definitely the best version of the song. It's more understated. Clapton's guitar works great throughout. I think they worked the keyboard hook to a greater effect in this version. Plus, most importantly, they don't do that goofy robot stuff in the chorus. It's just like soul singers in the background doing the chorus, and they bring out the soul quality to it. Ironically, the Eric Clapton version sounds more like a soul song than the Michael Jackson demo and Greg Phillinganes version, which sounds a little more like trying to be like early 80s new wave, where this really leans into the soul aspect of it, and it's great. And then it ends with another amazing track, Grand Illusion. Grand Illusion is a great finale, a great last song, a very meditative and reflective song that only a man that had been around the block, only a really cool and awesome middle-aged man could sing a song like Grand Illusion and really work the pathos the way he does. And some of his best guitar playing, really, some of Clapton's best guitar playing is in his impassioned solos on the song. And it's epic. It's very cinematic. Might be a little too slick for some people, but there could be soul and slickness, like Michael Mann's directing style, where it's like very nocturnal and slick, but yet there's soul to it. You know, music's like that too. Prince was very slick at times, but that didn't mean that there wasn't a lot of soul to it. And that's how I see this. And I think I really start to click with this Eric Clapton album with August when I start to really think of it more like a Prince album, when I start to think of it more like this is just a mid-80s R&B album with a rock element, just like how Prince was. He was primarily R&B, but with a rock element thrown in. The same way that Prince would have an R&B song, but then throw in this like ripping guitar solo during it. This album has that throughout, and it's very consistent. I think there's a case that this is his most consistent album, and I could see why it was a great comeback for him. When they toured for this album. Phil Collins toured with Eric Clapton for 2 years throughout 86 and 87. He sang like In the Air Tonight in the middle of the show, but that's it. Like for the most part, for the majority of the show, he's just Eric Clapton's drummer. Like he's just being the drummer. I think that says a lot about Phil Collins as a character and as a musician, that at the peak of his popularity as a solo artist and as the frontman for Genesis in the mid-80s, you couldn't get bigger than Phil Collins. And yet he was willing to just be the drummer for Eric Clapton. Like, yeah, it's the drummer for Eric Clapton, so there's some status to that. But considering how big of a star Phil Collins was in his own right then, he just had this side to him, obviously, where he just loved playing the drums, and he just loved being a musician. He loved being in the community with musicians. That's, to me, very admirable. And you can see Eric was invigorated. It was just like Paul Newman, like Fast Eddie, at the end of The Color of Money. Hey, I'm back. Like, that's what Eric Clapton seems like at that time. It's like, hey, I'm back. And it's a perfect moment. It's a perfect moment for awesome middle-aged men when Eric Clapton and Fast Eddie are both back and leaning into it. They're leaning into it. They're stepping up. They're competing with younger people, and they're best in them. They're best in them. That's my first video from Nashville proper. If you like it, like it. Even if you don't like it, like it. Subscribe. Hey, I'm back.